Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Pioneer 2K hosted by Apex Gaming. I'm Tandy, joined by Ross Merriam. Say hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
We got 4 rounds down, 2 Swiss to go before we get to the top 8. Ross, why don't you give us a rundown of what we're going to be watching in round number 5?
Well, we're trying to avoid watching Mono Green Devotion,
Oh, thank
but it's difficult
you. Yeah.
because there are 13 players in the field that are 3-1 or better, and 6 of them are playing Mono Green Devotion. But we found a match that doesn't have any of it, so that's where we're going to start. And that is Kyle Montgomery, who we've seen a couple times earlier playing that innovative take on a Lotus field. This is the control version, but splashing green from the normal Azoria shell to add up the Beanstalk from Wilds of Eldraine, playing against Joshua Milliken on Rakdos Sacrifice. So we saw Montgomery get sort of smushed by Andrew
yeah.
Wolthius on Boros Heroic.
That was a Team Switch Gaming team kill, and Boros Harug looking pretty spicy. And a great choice in the field with this much mono green. I think he's the favorite to win the whole tournament, personally.
But this Rakdos Sacrifice matchup, I think, much more manageable for the Lotus Field control deck because it can go way over the top of what Rakdos Sacrifice is doing, and Sacrifice doesn't apply that much pressure.
Yeah, and Sacrifice, I think, is built to prey on creature-based decks with things like Mayhem Devil and Fatal Push. Even Blood Tithe Harvester having that dual-sided nature, being able to attack your opponent's creatures. And I just think that it's not very well set up to beat Lotus Field. I know that the Lotus Field combo deck just eats it alive, and I think the control deck will be a very similarly bad matchup.
The one interesting dynamic is Stern Proctor, one of the cards that the Lotus Field deck uses to deploy Lotus Field without a downside. Strict Proctor, sorry. That is just going to eat removal spells every time.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be natural Lotus Fields here for Kyle Montgomery.
Well, the trick with it
might be good enough.
If it's a trigger that goes on the stack when you play your Lotus Field. So if you time it so you play it and then you play your Lotus Field, it'll get countered even if the Strict Proctor gets killed. It's super annoying to play against when they do that.
Yeah, so going to have to be patient with those Strict Proctors is Montgomery for this matchup.
Yeah, so let's go and head on down to the feature match area and see who takes it down between Rakdos Sacrifice and Bant Lotus Field Control. The Lotus Field Control deck with Up the Beanstalk has been quite strong in older formats like Modern and Legacy because of cheating on the casting cost with things like Solitude, Delve spells, and the like. But here in Bant Lotus Field, this deck is just using it kind of au natural. The only thing I've seen really cheesing on mana is Doomscar, but Doomscar has been a part of this deck for a while. It's a natural, thing to do with the Beanstalk.
Yeah, definitely just an excellent card to pair with Up the Beanstalk that already played well with the deck, but Sweeper is also not that great in this matchup. The Rakdos Sacrifice deck plays a lot of permanents, but not a ton of creatures.
All right, so Milliken going to lead off here with a Thoughtseize, and Montgomery looks like he's mulligan down to 5, so this Thoughtseize is pretty brutal. Hand of Doomscar, Strict Proctor, and some lands, including the Lotus Field, and we're going to take Strict Proctor and turn off the ability of Lotus Field to stop eating your lands.
Yeah, that's a way to effectively undo the mulligan because Lotus Field kind of counts like 3 lands if you're able to get it down without the sacrifice trigger.
All right, there's the Bant Triumph land. It's a big part of this deck, so you can cast all 3 colors of your spells. Here's Unlucky Witness coming in for 1. Milliken looks like he's got not a land drop for turn number 3. Back Montgomery's way. Finds Castle Vantress going to play 2 mana and foretell Doomscar.
Yeah, Milliken already knows about the Doomscar, so no risk of leaking information there. It just protects it from future Thoughtseizes and lets you cast it later on for a little bit of a discount.
All right, Milliken going to go end of turn Deadly Dispute, sacking the Unlucky Witness. That's going to get 2 cards off the top of the deck for Witness. Sparse Headquarters, excuse me. And then we're going to get 2 cards from the Deadly Dispute.
And Croxa is a solid one in this matchup. There's some sweepers, but I guess Farewell will exile it. So, but Doomscar, which is the one we know Kyle Montgomery has, not going to answer Croxa permanently.
All right, still doesn't look like a third land for Milliken here. Gonna use all his mana this turn. Gonna start sacking the treasure, playing Thoughtseize. Gonna take the only spell from Montgomery, and that's a Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Just 2 lands left, including that Lotus Field. Now, we're going to make him discard another card. That's Croxa, Titan of Death's Hunger coming down.
And it's got to be a land since that's all that's left, so Kyle will lose 3 life.
And Croxa will go to the graveyard looking to escape later on, but still 2 lands away from it.
This looks like a lot of removal in hand for Josh Milliken.
Yeah, it's kind of the way it goes. But Montgomery very low on resources, and the Lotus Field normally with strict proctor and discontinuity is an acceleration thing, but here it's just a land drop.
Kyle Montgomery has done very little in this game other than play lands, but Milliken has been unable to punish him. And if Montgomery gets enough time, eventually the mulligan to 5 will not matter. He will find big, powerful spells and take over this game.
All right, here's the start. Mayhem Devil. That's a 3/3. It's going to deal some extra damage, and Montgomery says that's enough. I'm going to go ahead and Doomscar. But now, if Milliken can draw a 4th mana source, could go for what is he grabbing?
Again, no, he sacked the
Oh, it's a food.
Man Devil for food.
And it deals him a damage as well. But if he draws a land, he can go for Crooks out of the graveyard. The Titan from the Return to Theros. He's escaping. How is he sacking the food for mana?
Yeah,
okay, yeah, it's a food token,
not a treasure.
Come on, buddy. Okay.
Which is someone would be really good if it made treasures.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's rewind that one a little bit. Okay, Milliken, what can you do here? He has Deadly Dispute. He can use that to sack the food token. That's going to draw some cards and make a treasure. This is why it's important to have the right tokens.
And now we have plenty of mana for the Croxa next turn. Picks up 2 lands off that Deadly Dispute. Does Milliken?
Now, he also has a Village Rites in hand and the 5th mana source, so when he escapes the Croxa next turn, if Montgomery goes for something like Tuck It with Teferi, he could potentially just sacrifice it to Village Rites and protect it from any sort of exile effect outside of Farewell.
Yeah. Ooh, Up the Beanstalk is a nice one. That can start generating some card advantage for Kyle Montgomery.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go Deadly Dispute in a turn, replace the treasure, so it's a 2-mana draw 2. Powerful stuff from Milliken here. Handful of removable cells, though. Not looking so good against the Upper Beanstalk control deck.
Everybody was going nuts during Wild Cells during previous season because they printed an instant speed divination. And Black has already had an instant speed divination that only costs 2.
Card's great in Pauper. Card's great in general, but in Pauper it is messed up. All right, here's Croxa. We're going to make you discard a card. If it's a land, you take 3. If it's a spell, you take 0. Discards a pathway. We're going to go back Montgomery's way. Looking for some way to trigger the Beanstalk. Here's another one. Going to draw a card. Can play Doomscar from exile and draw 2. And now you're going to start to see the deck start to churn with Beanstalk every turn, drawing 2 extra cards, hitting all your land drops. Milliken going to pay a black. Village Right sack to draw 2.
Generating a ton of card advantage. Just needs to find a way to turn these extra cards into pressure.
Montgomery, now gripful, even after a couple thought seizes. Just a moment ago had nothing, and now with the up the Beanstalks, is able to draw 2 cards per big spell he plays. Very difficult for attrition war for Rakdos Sacrifice to win. 17 life steal for Montgomery, too.
And look at this hand from Milliken. A full hand, and our best course of action is activating Den of the Bugbear.
Things you hate to see for 100, Alex.
Milliken's hand is chock full of lands and poopy removal spells.
All right, it is 8 cards in hand from all those Deadly Disputes and such and the Village Rites, and has a discard. But now we got a third of the Beanstalk. Now every big spell is going to draw 3 cards. Maybe this was the thing the deck was missing all along.
You know, at this point, we got to be getting close to the giant. We've gone so far up the Beanstalk.
All right, Montgomery down to 8 from the attack from the den and a couple of Croxa triggers and things like that. Our spotter was slightly off on the life total, but now they are updated. Milliken here at 17, but he's looking to close out quickly.
I think we're going to see just another activation of Den.
I mean, I guess you just hope that Montgomery has only sorcery speed stuff and your den just closes it out. I think going for something like Croxa here is going to be too little too late.
1 card away from escaping the Croxa again.
There's a March of Otherworldly Light. We're pitching Doomscar. Why are we doing... Oh, because we want to draw 3 cards off of the Beanstalk? That's insane. That's so good.
I'll pay a little extra mana, and I'll pitch this card if I get to draw 3.
All right. Montgomery going to draw 3 cards from the up the Beanstalks. It's so cool that they pay for itself. Engines like that rarely do that. When you play them, they cycle and then have, you know, big returns over the course of the game.
Yeah, it really raises the floor of those cards, and it's usually the floor that is the problem of them
Right. Because if it didn't draw a card when you played it, oftentimes you would play it early and then just die before you got to draw one
Yeah.
or two cards off of it. But now it just creates so much churn. Montgomery down to 7 from the Goblin. Gritful removal. Oh, lol.
Yeah, a lot of that is going to be coming out for games 2 and 3, so that'll make Milliken's draws look a lot better and a lot more consistent.
One of my biggest pet peeves with the traditional Azorius control deck in Pioneer has been the mana base. They play a bunch of lands that enter the battlefield tapped naturally, and then they play, lands like Glacial Fortress or whatever, like basically just a bunch of lands that enter the battlefield tapped. And I think the Lotus Field deck, while the mana is stretched a little bit differently, it's able to play pathways. And pathways just like don't exist in the regular blue-white control decks because you have Absorb and Supreme Verdict and things with just like heavy color requirements. Here's the Croxa. We're going to sack it with the trigger on the stack. This is cast from hand, not escaped. And then we're going to discard the Wandering Emperor. That means Milliken's in bad shape.
Yeah, I'm looking over Milliken's list, and one thing I noticed about his particular build of Rakdos Sacrifice, no copies of Blood Tithe Harvester.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when we saw it in the last few rounds, I thought, oh, that's like a way more aggressive slant. A lot of the decks go for different sacrifice themes, even though the Blood Tithe Harvester generates some cool stuff. All right, here is a discontinuity, though, and that's going to end the turn for Josh Milliken and draw 3 cards for the Up the Beanstalks. Normally, you're going to play this as a Time Walk, but if you cast it when your opponent has a spell on the stack, that spell gets exiled.
Yeah, you get a sort of counterspell, a pseudo counterspell for your troubles.
Yep, and if you have a big threat in play, you can just do it on your opponent's upkeep and actually Time Walk them. But you can also do it for 2 mana on your own turn to stop something like Lotus Field from sacking 2 lands.
Jesus.
That's why it's in the deck.
Now we have a Teferi that drew 3 cards from the Up the Beanstalks. It's going to draw another card from its own activation. It's then going to untap that Lotus Field and another land, so you effectively paid 1 mana and drew 4 cards. And got a Planeswalker.
Yep, here's Strict Proctor. The ability gets countered on the Lotus Field. The Teferi is going to untap 2 lands, and then on the upkeep, we're going to discontinuity Josh Milliken, and that's going to garner a Time Walk and 3 cards. We're going to Fatal Push the Proctor in response, but the turn's going to end, and Kyle Montgomery is going to draw 3 cards from it and have Teferi, Time Raveler in play. Excuse me, Hero of Dominaria.
Yeah, and now, even though Montgomery mulliganed to 5 at the beginning of this game, you would never know it from looking at the laughable imbalance of resources that we have now.
Ross, would you say that this is too free for the bean?
I would not, because I have self-respect and dignity.
I don't even know what that means. I just heard Sparring Spike say it before. Do I need the lore? Okay, director's going to hit me with the lore. You got to tell chat too, though. Juju Bean, yeah.
He destroyed Spike one time. He typed that chat.
Okay, apparently it's from Juju Bean, world's top 4 competitor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. That is brutal.
I don't even know if chat heard, but Juju Bean whipped up on a Sparring Spike. Okay, we're discarding to hand size. We're going to discard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Beanstalk, huh? Up the Beanstalk.
Yeah, this game is over.
I'm glad Up the Beanstalk is an uncommon, because it would probably be like a $20 rare.
Josh Milliken, you're just wasting your own time. Just concede.
No.
Opponent has 12 cards in hand.
No, never concede, never give up, and never surrender, Ross. We're going to draw 3 cards, exile the graveyard, hit all creatures, hit all artifacts.
Yeah, Milliken's going to sag his food in response.
Now we're going to not name enchantment so that we can keep our Up the Beanstalks in play. Milliken going to go up to a healthy 22. He's winning the race, Ross.
I don't think this is a race. I think this is a stomping.
Is this what it means when the tortoise and the hare race and you say the, slow and steady wins the race or whatever?
I don't even know if this was slow and steady. It was just slow to start. But once it got going, it was very quick for Kyle Montgomery to completely take over this game and draw somewhere in the neighborhood of a bazillion cards.
Why did he name enchantment? You can choose not to name enchantment, right? It's artifacts, enchantments, creatures, graveyards. Maybe he doesn't want to deck himself, actually. That might be a serious concern.
Yeah, he's already drawn enough cards.
Yeah. What is the win condition for Kyle Montgomery in the main deck? Can you give me that? Just Wandering Emperor and Teferi deck loop.
Yeah, I think we're just killing with Teferi.
If it's a Teferi deck loop, oh man.
Oh, there's one Dream Trawler and 2 Wandering Emperors.
You know who figured out the Teferi deck loop first?
No idea.
Brian Gottlieb, one of the lead designers on Flesh and Blood, used to be a co-host of the Arena Decklist podcast, Jerry Thompson. And I was at the tournament where he did it first, and I saw his deck, and he told me about it, and I threw up.
Josh Milliken finally packs it in. Now we're going to go to some sideboard.
All right, as these players are looking over their sideboard, Ross is going to be taking a look at their sideboard as well. Ross, why don't you give your expert analysis on what these players are going to be bringing to the table after they look at their sideboard 15?
Okay, starting with Josh Milliken on Rakdos Sacrifice. 4 copies of Leyline of the Void, 2 the Meathook Massacre, 2 Kolaghan's Command, 2 Karizev's Expertise, 1 Go for the Throat, 1 Dreadbore, 1 Go Blank, 1 Liliana of the Veil, and 1 Liliana Waker of the Dead. Notably, the Liliana of the Veil is a 3rd copy. There are 2 in the main deck. That's part of the reason that Milliken has eschewed Bloodtithe Harvester. Liliana's should be good in this matchup, so I'll bring in both of those Planeswalkers. Kolaghan's Command, I guess, could be okay. Go Blank could be okay.
Yeah. I think the big thing is you just have to get every removal spell out of your deck because the only target is Strict Proctor.
Yeah.
But, like, leaving Strict Proctor alone also kind of stinks. So,
Yeah, you got to get the claims out of your deck.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So you have 4 cards you 100% have to bring out. There's also 3 Fatal Push and 1 Go for the Throat in the main. Some number of those can come out. And I've identified 5 cards to bring in.
Okay.
So you can bring out
swaps.
you can bring out a Fatal Push, maybe, and have 3 removal spells in your deck.
All right. Well, on the other side of the coin, we do have this Bant up the Beanstalk deck with Lotus Field, and I'm curious what that sideboard looks like, and what do you think he's going to be deploying there, Ross?
Kyle Montgomery has 3 Dovin's Veto, 3 Temporary Lockdown, 2 Dragonlord Dromoka, 2 Narset's Reversal, 2 Thought Distortion, 1 Aether Gust, 1 Dream Trawler, and 1 Divine Smite. I like the lockdowns. It's very good at dealing with Witch's Oven in particular and some of the other problematic threats. I like the Dream Trawler as a way to go over the top, and I like the Divine Smite since there's a lot of black targets for it, in particular those Lilianas. Though this is a closed deckless tournament, normally you don't see that many Lilianas in a Rakdos Sacrifice list, but even if it's just dealing with
Not of
Mayhem
the Veil,
Devil,
right? It's the 4-drop one?
there's 3 Liliana of the Veil in the 75 and 1 Liliana Waker of the Dead.
Yeah, you don't see Liliana of the Veil too much in Sacrifice decks at all.
Yeah, so the 1 Divine Smite should play well for Kyle Montgomery.
All right, well, as these players are shuffling up and resolving mulligans for game number 2, I want to take a moment and shout out our sponsors. First of all, thanks to Apex Gaming here at their home store in Caldwell, Ohio, for having Ross Mayer and myself come up and provide y'all our commentary for their event. This is a Pioneer $2,000 open. Yesterday we had a Modern $5,000 open, and it was a blast. And every time we get to come up, it's always a great time, and we'd love if y'all could come out and hang out with us next time. We're going to be doing this again, this whole rigmarole like we did this weekend. We're going to be doing it again on October the 28th. Make sure to come out to that here in Caldwell, Ohio. Also, shout out to Wings, Etc. Grill and Pub for keeping us fed and happy after our days are done. Thanks to G Fuel Energy for making our long days feel a little bit shorter so that we can keep energized and put on this good show for you. And last but not least, thanks to Ultimate Guard for giving us swag bags for all of our top 8s of our invitational qualifiers. And if you want to know how you can get your hands on some of that Ultimate Guard swag, check out apexgaming.gg and find an invitational qualifier near you. The players today are competing for $2,000 in cash, but the winner is going to go to the regional championship in Denver next year, and the top 2 finalists will both be qualified for the Apex Invitational in November. Did I do good? Is
Great.
that good?
Looks like Josh Milliken is taking a mulligan here for game 2, and Kyle Montgomery says, you know what? I'll go to the bathroom while you shuffle.
Smart. Just have the judge cut the deck.
I think Milliken knows that he needs to find draws that have more early pressure. I don't really know exactly what that pressure is going to be, but if we can get down an early Liliana, that's sort of a different form of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it starts hitting the hand. I mean, we saw game number 1. Milliken had 2 Thought Seizes early and a couple Croaks activations, and Montgomery was really low on resources from the mulligan to 5, but Milliken wasn't able to capitalize because his hand was just too full of reactive, interactive elements like Fatal Push and Claim the Firstborn.
You know what I also don't see in this Rack Sack list? Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
Perhaps a little too pricey for Milliken. Just kidding.
That's
Milliken's old school.
That's another way to close out games. You get the reflection down, you start making copies of Mayhem Devils, you go off and combo your opponent out for a bunch of damage by sacrificing treasures and blood tokens and things.
You really don't have to sell me personally on Fable of the Mirror Breaker in a Rack-Sack deck.
Yeah.
I think that the addition of Liliana of the Veil means that Fable of the Mirror Breaker is a lot worse in this style of deck because you want a full grip or at least like 3 to 4 cards in hand when you're triggering Chapter 2. And Liliana of the Veil and emptying your hand early is a great way for you to, like, not have 2 or 3 cards in hand when you go for Chapter 2 of Fable. So I understand why that's not there, but I am also wary of it not being there.
Yeah, I don't see how Milliken is going to be able to generate the pressure necessary to close out a game against Bant Lotus Field before they start doing their thing and going absolutely nuts.
Yeah. I mean, we saw last game, Montgomery eventually drew up the Beanstalk and utilized that to just do some serious digging. Even exiled his own up the Beanstalks at some point to make sure he didn't deck himself.
Yeah, that was not casual digging. It was very serious.
Aggressive. Very aggressive.
I do see a Liliana of the Veil in Milliken's hand, so if we can land that one on turn 3, maybe we get something going.
All right, Milliken puts one on bottom. We're off to the races. Turn number 1, Shock Blood Crypt. This looks like an unlucky witness.
Well, it looks like a one-lander for Milliken. I see 2 Liliana, 2 Unlucky Witness, and a Witch's Oven. So depending on these witnesses sacrificing to the oven to find his other land drops.
All right, here is Witch's Oven. We're going to attack for 1, and we're going to sacrifice it to the Witch's Oven, making a food so we can find our land drop, and we do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Find another land drop, exile a poopy Fatal Push.
Yeah, I mean, he already has a Fatal Push in hand to check a Strict Proctor in the next turn or 2. Hopefully, he can fire that off before Montgomery is able to get the Lotus Field down. And with 2 blue sources as the first 2 plays for Montgomery, it makes a lot of sense that the Fatal Push might actually catch the Strict Proctor before it's able to come down with the Lotus Field in tandem.
Milliken draws land 3, so Liliana of the Veil coming down on time. And Milliken has a pretty small hand already.
All right, we're going to discard one of the 2 Liliana of the Veils after playing the 1. This has Fatal Push in hand still. Can sack the Unlucky Witness at any time to look at the top 2 and dig deeper. Finds Cauldron Familiar, the perfect pairing with Witch's Oven. Makes a nice little kitty pie.
It is quite the combo.
All right, instead, I think we're just going to discard the cat and hold on to that Fatal Push.
Yeah, we get to discard the cat, sack the witness to the oven, and then use that food to start the loop.
Right, very cool stuff. Kyle Montgomery discards the Lotus Field to the Liliana on the previous turn. Now he's thumbing a Doomscar and puts it into the bin. Cauldron Familiar is the discard. We'll see if Milliken wants to go ahead and bring it back. He's going to wait until the end step. Strict Proctor. There's the Lotus Field. And now Milliken is going to go Fatal Push in response, but the trigger from Strict Proctor still counters the Lotus Field.
Yeah, I've got the mana, but I don't want to pay.
All right, we're going to bring back the Cauldron Familiar, and then we can sacrifice it and bring it back again. Drain you for 2. We get the Strict Proctor off the battlefield so that we're able to continuously do that without being hindered. Finds another Cauldron Familiar. As pressure.
Sort of.
We're going to sacrifice the Unlucky Witness before attacks. We're going to get a land off of it. We can attack with the cat. We're going to play the 4-drop Liliana Death's Majesty.
Waker of the Dead.
Waker of the Dead. Let's get that one on screen. Liliana Waker of the Dead. 4-cost Liliana Planeswalker. As Kyle Montgomery reads it, we're going to read it as well. I believe it makes some 2/2s. No, okay, +1. Each player discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life. So more pressuring the hand with the Lilianas. -3. Target creature gets -X/-X till in a turn, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard, with a big graveyard already. -7. You can emblem with at the beginning of your combat on your turn. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. Very powerful effects. The discard's the big deal, though, right?
Yeah, Milliken is empty-handed, so he can just draw his card for turn, cast it, or play a land, and then plus these Lilianas, and effectively, gain 2 cards of card advantage in a negative way by stripping your opponent rather than gaining it yourself each turn.
All right, here's a Beanstalk. Going to draw a card, find Thespian Stage. I think he has access to Temporary Lockdown, but choosing not to cast it. Here, Milliken can keep chewing up the hand That's what he's going to do. +1 discard. Otawara going to bounce the Liliana, and it's going to have to get discarded to itself. This is an old trick from Modern where you would bounce the Liliana, the Veil, with the same trigger on the stack. And Montgomery pitches the temporary lockdown as the other card.
Right.
And then Liliana going to tick up to 7 and threatens ultimate next turn.
Interesting, yeah. Could have ultimated the Lily this turn, would have lost it, but probably stripped Kyle of 3 or 4 lands.
Oh, here's a lockdown, but that doesn't hit Liliana the Veil. It only hits 2s. So Milliken here going to sack the cat, bring it back. He's going to let it get exiled. He could have left it in the graveyard and had just the Witch's Oven get caught by it, but I think he perhaps made a minor mistake here, and he's going to get punished pretty hard for it.
Oh, well, it'll be interesting to see what the split on this Liliana Ultimate is.
Ah, maybe that's it. Okay. Well, Milliken draws. We have Den of the Bugbear. We're going to -6. This is going to say half your lands are gone. We got 2 Thespian Stage, 3 other lands, Beanstalk, and the temporary lockdown. It's probably going to be like the 2 permanents that are not lands, 1 Lotus Field versus 4 lands, one of which is a Lotus Field. And I think Kyle has to keep the pile with the permanents.
Yes, I'm almost inclined to put just a Lotus Field with the non-land permanents
Same.
and all the other lands in the other pile.
Yeah, now it's an easy keep on the left-hand side, or Kyle Montgomery's left-hand side, our top side.
Yeah. Ooh, looks like Kyle says... Where did the... Why is he up the Beanstalk still there?
I don't know. Maybe the piles were split differently than we thought. Well, Milliken attacks in with the Den of the Bugbear. We got Teferi, or Hero of Dominaria. That's going to draw a card off the Beanstalk.
That's a pretty good draw. Oh, it was under the lockdown.
Excuse
Yeah,
me.
that's why. Okay, that makes sense.
All right.
Um,
Draw a card from the Beanstalk. Draw a card from the Teferi. Now we're facing off here. We got another Lotus Field. It's going to sack our other 2 lands and leave us with just 2 Lotus Fields.
so Kyle decides that he needed to keep more lands. So good on Milliken for putting the extra land over with the lockdown.
All right, we get to untap both of these Lotus Fields, though. The Thespian Stage is a copy, and we have access to 6 mana right now. Milliken here, though, churning damage. Got Den of the Bugbear coming in. We got Cauldron Familiar with Cat Oven.
And we still have the pressure from the Liliana of the Veil. Kyle Montgomery's going to have to discard a card each turn.
All right, discards Spar's Headquarters. Here comes the Den. We have 6 mana. We have Memory Deluge with 2 floating. Take a look at the top 4 cards. Doesn't draw a card off the Beanstalk. It packs it in. That's a lethal attack, and Josh Milliken takes game 2 after that big ultimate.
Yeah, didn't have a ton of pressure on the life total, but the hand pressure from those Lilianas was decisive in that game. They did some work.
Yeah, definitely. I'm honestly really impressed with Kyle Montgomery's play so far. This is a very complicated deck, and it seems like he already has a mastery over it. And, watching someone play quickly when their deck is as complicated as this Bant Lotus Field deck, especially with new cards like Up the Beanstalk, is really nice to see.
Yeah, he very clearly knows what he's trying to accomplish in each matchup.
Right.
And
Has a clear goal in mind with all of his actions.
Exactly. Very intentional.
All right, as these players are shuffling up here for game number 3, they have a chance to reach back for their sideboards. It doesn't look like either player is going. Oh, I spoke too soon. Excuse me. 1 card changed out here for Montgomery, and we're going to be shuffling up here. He's going to be on the plate, and and normally against aggressive decks, that's great. In this particular matchup, it's going to go a bit longer. I wouldn't even mind seeing him choose to draw. Maybe that's dumb. I think more people should draw.
You know, it could be in a matchup where you're under a lot of hand pressure from the Lilianas and you're not under a ton of pressure on your life total. I could see it.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of Disney's Lorcana recently, and I've been experimenting by choosing to be on the draw every game, but I do it by asking my opponent if they want to play or draw whenever we play.
Interesting.
I'm just curious if it's better. The way the resource system works, it's really interesting. Anyway, being on the draw, underrated. Obviously not great against super explosive decks like Mono Green Devotion, aggressive decks,
Being on the draw is probably a little overrated at this point, but it can still be correct.
Overrated at this point?
Yeah, it used to be more correct.
All right, here we go. Kyle Montgomery going to be on the play if he chooses.
Yeah, and it's really, I think, all about these Lilianas from Josh Milliken. Without them, he gives Kyle way too much time to set up that mana engine with those Lotus fields, and then you really just don't have the power to compete on the level that the Bant Lotus field deck is playing on.
All right, these players are going to draw their opening hands, and we'll be starting here in just a moment. This is round number 5 of 6 of Swiss. The winner here might be able to draw next round into our top 8, so this is a potential win and end for both players. Tiebreakers might be a little wonky, etc., but it's always nice when you get to the end of the day and you have a loss to give.
Yeah, I think we're going to end up with some of the X1s being able to draw, some not, just based on tiebreakers, which is usually how it goes. But these players had pretty strong starts. I think Kyle Montgomery lost to Boris Heroic in round 3.
Yep.
So had a 2-0 start, should have decent breakers.
Yep. Montgomery going to go packing, and so does Milliken, follows him. They're going to go to London Town, taking a mulligan. You were in London Town recently. Tell us about your trip to London. I know you went to some
I
cool
was
places.
in Manchester area, not London.
Oh, excuse me.
Different part of the country.
Continue, though, with your trip.
I took a trip. Now I'm back.
You're such a storyteller, and for you to just, like, shoo me here, like, shoo me away,
Yeah,
I'm setting you up for a spike.
we're watching magic here.
We're watching people shuffle, Ross. This is called filling. All right. Montgomery going to be on the play. Both going to be looking at 6.
You know, on lower hand counts, I think you're favoring Milliken a little bit more than you otherwise would. It's going to make the Lilianas more effective. It's going to make it harder for Kyle to assemble the different synergies and get that mana engine going. But once he does, he undoes the mulligans really well.
Yeah, the Beanstalk, lots of draw twos like Memory Deluge. And that's why, like, the old idea of, like, pure card advantage just isn't really a big deal anymore, because so many cards, once you cast them, just generate 2 or 3 virtual cards or actual cards themselves, and you're able to catch up on raw resources quite quickly. Mulliganing to 5 is commonplace in Modern and Pioneer these days, aggressively mulliganing for specific interactions because of the way that they're exploited and generate extra resources.
We saw so much mulliganing on camera yesterday.
Yes, we did.
A lot of 5-on-5 battles.
All right, well, going to show his hand of 2 red sources and 5 black cards. We're going to throw it back. Milliken going to 5. Montgomery is going to keep his 6. Back in the day, we start chanting something in this stage. We go 4, 4, 4, 4. Because you want your opponent to mulligan as many times as possible.
Yeah,
At all times.
you take them how you can get them.
That's the dirty cutthroat in me.
Take them how you can get them.
It's hard to turn off sometimes.
I just want dubs.
Yeah, normally it's like, oh, I'm so sorry you mulligan 5. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
please, keep going.
The people who say that are filthy liars.
I don't know. I've had some really weak games of Magic because my opponent mulliganed to 5 and
Don't
like missed
care.
their second land drop. I care when it's like F&M, low stakes. If I want a good fun game, it's different. But if I'm playing a tournament where first place is cash money, I want you to go to 0. I want you to get sick and throw up on yourself at the table. I want you to lose in any way possible.
The only time I got sick during a Magic tournament, I won. It was great.
Nice.
Take that, Reed Duke.
Oh yeah, you're really talking down to my man Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Hey.
Pro Tour champion,
Got-
you.
Like
Hall
I
of
said,
Famer.
I take my wins when I can get them.
Yeah. All right, we're here. Milliken's got 5. Got to put 2 back. Looking at Go for the Throat and a Witch's Oven. There's the oven going back. Has 2 copies of it, it looks like. Now thinking maybe I want to keep this removal spell. Kolaghan's Command. Normally it's pretty cool against a control deck, but there are no artifacts on Kyle's side. And the creatures that Milliken's going to be getting back with the like regrow effect on the Kolaghan's Command, not that great.
Yeah, but you have so many weak cards.
Right.
You just kind
Yes.
of bring it in.
Yep, you got to do what you got to do. That's one thing I learned from watching Futurama. You got to do what you got to do.
I think we see a go blank in Milliken's hand as well, so a lot of clunky 2-for-1s.
All right, Thoughtseize you. Here it comes. Discontinuity, Odawara, Farewell, Strict Proctor, and the Wandering Emperor. This is a beautiful hand from Kyle. A little light on mana. No Lotus Field to speak of. Strict Proctor might be the take.
Most powerful card you think are Wandering Emperor and Farewell.
We're so far from Farewell. I think you just kind of say, I'm going to lose to Farewell if he casts it. So we just take the cards that beat us, and Wandering Emperor might be one of those cards.
Milliken does go for one of the more powerful cards in the hand. Generally, you want to hit the more powerful cards if you know you're not going to have a ton of pressure, and Milliken's hand has effectively no pressure.
All right. Draw. Finds Deadly Dispute. Nothing to sack. Says go.
Ugh.
Draw for turn is up the Beanstalk. Draw a card. Do we find the land? It looks like a breed pool. Yes, it is.
Moving on up
Moving on up
to the east side,
to the east side.
to a deluxe apartment in the sky.
Oh, man.
Yes, we finally got
All right,
a
so
piece
we're gonna get in
of
trouble.
the
Stop.
pie.
Stop! The AI bots recognize the tune that you're singing, Ross. Here's a memory deluge.
Do they love the Jeffersons too?
I mean, I do. All right. 2 to the bottom, 2 to the hand. Montgomery here. Finds the land. Gonna pass back. Just a cat on Milliken side and only 2 lands. Montgomery firmly.
Oh, another
position.
3-drop, eh?
Whee!
Yeah,
Main
definitely using this Deadly Dispute. Let's go.
Yeah, sacking the cat. Gonna draw 2 and get a treasure. Pushing us closer to being able to do something. Finds the land as well. And a Thoughtseize. Wow, nice pickup.
Yeah, solid pair of cards there.
But with the Beanstalk already in play and a second one in hand, what do you go for? Another Beanstalk? That's so hard because there's 2 Farewells, a Strict Proctor, and a Discontinuity. And he's so close to being able to do all of it.
Oh, the one thing Farewell can't touch is that Den of the Bugbear, and that's probably Milliken's plan to actually finish the game.
Okay, well, let's see if he's able to execute. It's going to be tough sledding. Here's land number 6 for Montgomery. Has the ability to time walk Milliken with the 6-man Discontinuity on upkeep. I imagine that's going to be what's played. Yep, he says go, upkeep, Discontinuity. We'll draw a card. Now, turn ins. Do you have any responses? No. Discontinuity exiled. Back Montgomery's way.
The old Cantripping Time Walk.
Thespian stage. Nothing cool to copy right now except maybe the Den of the Bugbear if you can get a second red source from somewhere. Here's Colgon's command from Milliken. We're going to go Noggin Whack. Bring back Cauldron Familiar.
If Kyle Montgomery wins this game with a copy of Den of the Bugbear, we should just give him the trophy right now.
While I agree, I think that more so speaks to Bant Lotusfield's inability to close. Tapping 3. Is this a go blank time? Go blank.
Sure.
That's what I'm doing right now watching this match. Going blank.
I'll dig through time first. We do not trigger the Up the Beanstalk off this flashback because it is a 4-mana value spell.
Yep. That checks out. So we're going to resolve Memory Deluge. I think they're just getting clarification from the judge. The mana value on the card will always be the same. It's the number at the top right, and that's what Beanstalk cares about. That's why you draw a card off of things like Solitude, and that's why you don't draw a card off something like Memory Deluge. 7 cards peeled off the top here. Why did he put them in his hand? I think he just made a huge error. This is a big deal, but we might be able to fix it. The judge is sitting right there. He put the 7 on top of his hand by accident, and we know the cards in Montgomery's hand were Farewell, Farewell, and Random.
I mean,
So
it should just be those cards and then the bottom 7, because all he did was mash one stack into the other. He didn't shuffle them together, fortunately.
That's true. All right, so Montgomery here. I think it's a no harm, no foul scenario. Very close, though. Montgomery getting in some trouble. He's going to take a look at his hand to figure out what he wants off of the Deluge. Takes another Deluge. Thought I saw a Beanstalk in there. Seems pretty good for this attrition war.
Really, just take reasonable cards, wait till we find a Teferi, and then the game will end.
14 turns later.
Yeah.
47 turns later if we're decking by Teferi. All right, so Farewell discards 2. Graveyard gets exiled. Memory Deluge cards go on the bottom. We're going to go back Montgomery's way. Ooh, a shock. Sorry, excuse me. We still got some action left.
Yeah, we got a 1-1. Let's switch those life totals.
You know, they used to do cool sound effects and visual effects whenever you play a card on Magic Arena. And at some point, they just stopped doing it. And it was really sad. But I could be the guy that makes all the sound effects.
There it is. Stern Proctor and Lotus Field into Teferi. We had it all.
Does somebody call an Uber?
Let's game. Just not enough pressure from this build of Rakdos Sacrifice for Josh Milliken.
Here's Dreadboard, though. We do have the answer for the Teferi. Now, if he had discontinuity, I don't think this Thespian stage is copying, but it would have been funny to have the full answer there. We have 2 removal spells. Strict Proctor down. Teferi down. Let's go for a Throne Dreadboard, taking care of them. We have Cat Oven online, but Montgomery still at a very high life total and still has plenty of cards left in hand.
Yeah.
Up the
It
Beanstalk.
doesn't matter. You're
so
dead.
strong. Here's Deluge. Top 4. I too want to reveal cards off of Deluge, Montgomery. I get it. Draws return. See what he's got. Some big spell. I saw a discontinuity in there. 4 mana.
Thinks better of it.
Okay. Might want to copy if he has extra mana lying around, so no need to tap the Thespian stage unless you're using all your mana and need a bunch of colors. Here's Dream Trawler. Drawing a card. This one's going to close the game.
That's game.
Oh, GG boy. You know what you can't do, Dream Trawler, is target it with removal spells. All you got to do to protect it is discard a card. And it's got lifelink. It gets enormous when you draw cards. It drew a card off the Beanstalk. What you got, Josh? Shieldred's Edict, maybe?
This Bant is impressive. And you know what card is really good against Mono-Grade Devotion? Farewell.
Yeah, no kidding.
3 of them.
This whole Bant Lotus Field deck might just be a perfect choice. We saw him get absolutely dumpstered by that Boros Prowess Heroic deck earlier. But, I mean, if he's fighting against a bunch of Thoughtseize decks and Mono Green Devotion, woo, Montgomery might be my pick to win.
We got some Mono Green Slayers up top with a sea of Mono Greens, so.
Oh, yeah. We're going to cycle Spar's Headquarters. Looks like we found... Ah, man. Couldn't quite catch it. I think it might have been a Wandering Emperor. No, March of Otherworldly Light. We're going to draw a card. Going to knock off the old Mayhem Devil. We're going to sack to do damage. And this is going to keep growing the Dream Trawler as well. So it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and gaining more life. And Milliken, without any real way to beat the Dream Trawler, I think is actual 0% to win the game. But we're going to play it out because the Dream Trawler does kill pretty quickly. But we're going to gain a big ol' life boost. Montgomery up to 21. And here comes a lockdown to take care of the oven. And it's also going to hit the Beanstalk. A little awkward, but out of the sideboard, the temporary lockdown can be nice. And he's got plenty of cards, so no need really to care too much about it.
Not at all. Dream Trawler, just make sure you got some cards in your hand, and this game will be over in 2 turns.
All right, going to attack for 5 and gain 5, up to 26. Milliken down to 5. Another Dream Trawler. And he packs. That's the one that did it, folks. That's the one that forced the concession.
We could have beaten the first one, but the second one...
It's too much. Too much. The Bant Lotus Field up your Beanstalk deck looks quite good here.